They wanted to unleash 10-foot killing machines to save Florida, and almost created an extinction event. Florida has a problem. Actually, scratch that. Florida has 500 problems, and every single one of them is an invasive species that shouldn't exist there. I'm Patrick, and this is Speculative Science, where we explore the moments when human desperation meets terrible ideas. And somehow, those ideas almost become reality. Today, I'm going to tell you about a plan so audacious, so seemingly perfect, and so catastrophically flawed that it makes the mongoose disaster in Hawaii look like a minor inconvenience. This is the story of how scientists seriously considered releasing Komodo dragons, yes, actual Komodo dragons, into the Florida wilderness to eat pythons, wild hogs, and everything else that's destroying the Sunshine State. And here's the terrifying part. The plan almost made sense. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why. Florida is walking a razor's edge between ecological collapse and a prehistoric nightmare that would make Jurassic Park look like a petting zoo. Florida's invasion nightmare. Let me paint you a picture of modern Florida that has nothing to do with beaches, Disney World, or retirement communities. South Florida is the most invaded ecosystem in mainland America. More than 500 non-native species have established themselves there. 500, and we're not talking about harmless plants or butterflies. We're talking about ecological terrorists that cost the state over $500 million annually. Let's start with the celebrity invader, the Burmese python. These snakes didn't teleport from Southeast Asia. They escaped or were released from the exotic pet trade in the 1980s and 90s. And in the warm, wet wonderland of the Everglades, they found paradise. An adult Burmese python in Florida averages 6 to 9 feet. Uncomfortable but manageable, right? Wrong. The record holder was over 18 feet long. That's 6 human steps, and the snake still doesn't end. But size isn't even the worst part. It's what's inside them. When scientists cut open captured pythons, they found the remains of deer, alligators, endangered wood storks, bobcats, and even a 76-pound adult deer swallowed whole. One study estimated that python predation caused a 99% decline in raccoon observations, a 98% decline in opossums, and an 87% decline in bobcats in some areas. Think about that. Entire mammal populations gone in a single generation. And the pythons? They have no natural predators. They're breeding exponentially. Estimates suggest there are anywhere from 30,000 to 300,000 of them slithering through the Everglades right now. Nobody knows for sure because they're almost impossible to find. Florida has tried everything. Hunting competitions with cash prizes, trained dogs, aerial drones with infrared cameras. Nothing works. The pythons keep winning. But wait, there's more. Wild hogs, descended from Spanish colonial pigs that went feral in the 1500s. These animals are smart, aggressive, and destructive. They destroy crops, spread disease, attack pets, and cause $1.5 billion in damage annually across the state. They're also nearly impossible to control. Hunters kill thousands every year, and it doesn't matter. The survivors adapt, becoming nocturnal, hiding in swamps, learning to avoid humans like they're playing a deadly game of chess. And then there are the smaller invaders. Nile monitors eating turtle eggs, cane toads poisoning pets, Argentine tegus raiding bird nests, lionfish devouring reef ecosystems. Florida isn't just fighting an invasion. It's losing a war on 500 different fronts simultaneously. And that's when someone asked the question that should never have been asked. What if we brought in something that could eat all of them? Enter the dragon. The Komodo dragon is not an animal. It's a prehistoric horror show that somehow survived into the modern era. Males reach 10 feet in length and weigh over 300 pounds. That's roughly the size of a fully grown lioness. Except this thing is a reptile with shark-like teeth, venomous saliva, and the patience of a serial killer. On their native islands in Indonesia, the Lesser Sunda's Komodo, dragons sit at the absolute top of the food chain. They eat deer, wild boar, water buffalo, and each other when food runs low. They can consume 80% of their body weight in a single meal, which means a 300-pound dragon can eat a 240-pound pig and then take a nap. But here's what makes them truly terrifying as a biocontrol candidate. They're generalist predators. Unlike specialist hunters that target specific prey, Komodo dragons don't care what they eat. Mammals, birds, reptiles, carrion. If it has meat on it, it's food. And for centuries, they've been hunting invasive species on their home islands. Most of their diet today consists of animals humans brought. Deer, pigs, goats. The dragons adapted perfectly, becoming universal killing machines, equally effective against native and non-native prey. On paper, this is exactly what Florida needs. A Komodo dragon could theoretically hunt Burmese pythons. After all, they live alongside reticulated pythons in Indonesia, which are even longer. They could ambush wild hogs from the undergrowth, delivering a venomous bite and tracking the dying animal for hours until it collapses from blood loss. And unlike the mongooses in Hawaii, which failed because of a simple day-night mismatch, Komodo dragons are active during the day and opportunistic at dawn and dusk. They could target both diurnal and crepuscular invaders. Even better, the dragons are endangered in the wild. Climate change and rising sea levels threaten to submerge 30 to 70% of their habitat by 2040. Fewer than 1/400 breeding adults remain. So this wasn't just biocontrol, it was conservation. Florida could become a refuge for a species on the brink of extinction while simultaneously solving its invasion crisis. The logic was seductive, almost elegant, and that's when the scientists started looking closer. The fatal flaws. Here's where the plan starts to crack. Like thin ice over deep water, Florida already has experience with monitor lizards, and it's been an unmitigated disaster. The Nile monitor, a semi-aquatic lizard from Africa, established itself in South Florida decades ago. Adults reach 6 to 8 feet and weigh 13 to 33 pounds, significantly smaller than a Komodo dragon, and they've been obliterating the local ecosystem. Nile monitors eat everything: sea turtle eggs, burrowing owl chicks, baby alligators, gopher tortoises, feral cats, pet iguanas. They're so adaptable that Florida's canal system, meant for flood control, became a highway network for them to spread. Cape Coral has the largest population of burrowing owls in Florida. It also has the largest population of Nile monitors. Researchers watching this collision happen in real time describe it as you're watching a slow-motion extinction event. Now here's the logical question. If a relatively small monitor lizard causes this much damage, what would a 300-pound Komodo dragon do? The answer isn't more of the same. It's something exponentially worse. Because the Komodo dragon wouldn't replace the Nile monitor. It would partner with it. Two predators, different sizes, different hunting styles, occupying different ecological niches. The Nile monitor would continue eating eggs, small birds, and juvenile reptiles. The Komodo dragon would hunt everything bigger: deer, raccoons, bobcats, foxes, and yes, endangered species. The Florida panther, for example. About 200 individuals remain, clinging to survival in a mere 5% of their historic range. They're the apex predator of South Florida, the king of the food chain. But a Komodo dragon doesn't care about apex predators. It cares about calories. Panthers weigh 60 to 160 pounds, well, within a Komodo dragon's prey range. And unlike the alert, experienced deer on Komodo Island, Florida panthers have never encountered anything like this. No ambush predator their size with venom and serrated teeth. A dragon hiding in tall grass could deliver a bite, retreat, and track the dying panther for hours. Venom causes shock, prevents clotting, and induces hemorrhaging. Even if the panther escapes initially, it's already dead. It just doesn't know it yet. We'd be introducing an apex predator to kill an apex predator, except the one we're trying to save is already endangered. The predator problem. But let's say we're okay with sacrificing a few panthers for the greater good. Surely the dragons could coexist with the other major predators. Right? Wrong. Because Florida has something the Lesser Sunda Islands don't. Alligators and crocodiles. South Florida is the only place on Earth where American alligators and American crocodiles live side by side, and both of them are bigger, heavier, and more armored than anything a Komodo dragon has ever faced. Male alligators reach 10 to 16 feet and weigh several hundred pounds. Their bite force exceeds 2,700 psi, enough to crush bone like chalk. In water, they're nearly unstoppable, using their muscular tails to perform death rolls that tear prey apart. A Komodo dragon has venom, claws, and speed on land. But in the swamps and wetlands where most invasive species live, the alligator wins. And this isn't speculation. We know what happens when large monitor lizards meet crocodilians. In Thailand, a viral video showed a Burmese python regurgitating a dead monitor lizard it had swallowed. Now, we don't know if the python killed the monitor or found it already dead. But either way, the message is clear. Even large monitor lizards are vulnerable to ambush predators in wetland environments, so the Komodo dragons would have to avoid water, which is exactly where most of Florida's invasive species live. The pythons love swamps. The hogs wallow in wetlands. The iguanas bask near canals. The dragons would be forced to hunt on dry land, away from their primary targets, which means they'd start eating whatever is available on dry land, like gopher tortoises, like ground nesting birds, like the remaining native mammals already decimated by pythons. The poison twist. And then there's the twist nobody saw coming: cane toads. Cane toads were introduced to Florida in the 1930s to control sugarcane pests. Yes, another biocontrol disaster. They secrete bufotoxin, a poison lethal to most predators. In Australia, where cane toads are also invasive, native monitor lizards die in massive numbers from eating them. The lizards haven't evolved resistance to the toxin. They bite a toad, ingest the poison, and die within hours. Komodo dragons are monitor lizards. They hunt by biting. Cane toads are everywhere in South Florida. You see the problem. Proponents argue that dragons might eventually learn to avoid cane toads. Some Australian predators have started recognizing them as dangerous, but that learning process takes generations and costs countless lives. Imagine spending millions of dollars to transport, establish, and protect a breeding population of Komodo dragons in Florida, only to watch them die by the dozens because they keep eating toxic toads. It would be the mongoose disaster all over again, except this time with 300-pound venomous lizards dying in suburban backyards. The human factor. And we haven't even discussed the most obvious problem: people. Komodo dragons attack humans. Not often, because their native islands are sparsely populated. But it happens. In 2007, a Komodo dragon killed an 8-year-old boy, the first fatal attack in 33 years. In 2009, a man fell from a tree, and 2 waiting dragons immediately attacked, killing him through blood loss. In 2020, a construction worker was hospitalized after a dragon bite. These incidents are rare because fewer than 2,000 people live within Komodo National Park. South Florida has 6.2 million people. Imagine dragons establishing themselves near Miami suburbs, wandering into parks, showing up at schools. Imagine a child playing near the edge of the Everglades, unaware that a 300-pound ambush predator is lying in the grass 10 feet away. The liability would be astronomical. The lawsuits would be endless. And unlike alligators, which people have learned to respect and avoid, Komodo dragons would be a new, unknown threat. People wouldn't know how to react, and dragons, unused to humans, wouldn't know to avoid populated areas. The result would be inevitable: human fatalities, public outrage, and an emergency eradication program costing tens of millions of dollars. We'd go from, let's introduce dragons to solve our invasion problem, to, we need to kill all the dragons before they kill us in less than a decade. Why simple solutions don't exist. So why am I telling you about a plan that never happened? Because it almost did. Because serious ecologists seriously considered it. Because when you're desperate enough, even terrible ideas start to look reasonable. And because the Komodo dragon plan perfectly illustrates why biocontrol almost never works. On paper, it's elegant. Introduce a predator, watch it eat the invaders, problem solved. But ecosystems aren't equations. You can balance with simple additions and subtractions. They're webs of relationships built over millions of years. Pull one thread, and 100 others start to unravel in ways you never predicted. The mongooses in Hawaii seemed perfect until they weren't. The cane toads in Australia seemed logical until they became a bigger problem than the pests they were meant to control. And the Komodo dragons in Florida, they would have been magnificent, terrifying, and absolutely catastrophic. Because here's the truth nobody wants to hear. There is no silver bullet for invasive species. Not hunting, not trapping, not biocontrol. The only real solution is preventing the invasions in the first place. And Florida failed at that decades ago. Now, they're stuck managing an endless war against 500 different enemies, spending billions, losing species, and watching their ecosystem transform into something unrecognizable. The dragons would have just been another enemy added to the list. This has been Speculative Science. I'm Patrick, and I hope this story haunts you the next time someone proposes a simple solution. To a complex problem, nature is not simple. Ecosystems are not mechanical, and every time we think we can outsmart millions of years of evolution, nature reminds us exactly how arrogant that assumption is. If you want more stories of well-intentioned disasters and ecological near misses, hit that subscribe button. We're just getting warmed up. Drop a comment. What's the worst biocontrol idea you've ever heard? What other invasion disasters should I cover? I read every comment, and your suggestions fuel this channel. And remember, the next time you visit Florida and see an alligator, a python, or even just an iguana, you're looking at an ecosystem in crisis, a paradise invaded, a warning about what happens when we play God without understanding the rules. Thanks for watching. Stay curious, stay skeptical, and whatever you do, don't release your pet dragon